Welcome to Ministry Pivot. I'm Reverend Russ. So excited to have you here with us on Ministry Pivot. Big thank you to everyone who has liked, who has subscribed, who check in for these every second and fourth Thursday of the month. Really excited about the ones that we've had already. We did a great season last year, but in 2021, we have some new ones coming. Again, thank you to Givelify for your partnership on the very first pivot of the year. We did a New Year Pivots series. Thank you to my pastor, Pastor Matthew Watley, to Bishop Walter Scott Thomas, and of course to my colleague and to an awesome leader, Reverend Dr. Nicole Massey Martin, for sharing. And that one was so impactful. We've had thousands of people who watched it and leaders who've been impacted by it and sent in questions and sent in some thoughts. And so please, if you haven't had a chance to view that one, please go back in the archives. You'll be able to see that one. And then last time we had Ministry Pivot, we talked about staffing, and we are thankful for my good friend and brother, Pastor Christopher Harris, who leads staffing and leads a organization called diversechurchjobs.com, and he shared great knowledge with us last time. And so you're thinking about staffing in this season, I encourage you to watch that one. And I am excited because we are in a new series in Ministry Pivot. We'll be doing some of these and some normal, not normal, but some regular church ones. But these are going to be different. These I'm calling this series the Ministry Calling, and understanding that all of us have a calling. All of us have a God-given calling that God has called us to as leaders, whether we are in the church or whether we're in the marketplace. And so I'm going to be speaking with marketplace leaders, talking about their calling to God, talking about how God is a part of all that they do in ministry, all that they do in life, all that they do in their job, and how all of those are the same. Their life, their ministry, their job is one thing for them, and super excited about that. And so this week we have none other than Samantha Silawani. She is the Senior VP of Urban Marketing at RCA, and it really has a super leadership gift and has influence over hundreds of thousands of people that you hear, that hear artists, and you'll hear more about her. But I wanted to talk with Sam specifically around her faith and how her faith activates what she does. And she also is a awesome art buff. And so we'll hear some of that. And then on the next pivot after this one, I have Terrell Daniels, who's a great friend and brother. He is a local Chick-fil-A owner and operator here in the Maryland area. So we get to talk with him and hear about how he was able to pivot his staff and his team in the midst of COVID and actually become to be pretty successful in what he's doing, and that Chick-fil-A store by itself being pretty successful in what they're doing. So excited about this series. Please make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you like, make sure that you follow on all of the platforms so that we can be in touch with you, but that so also you can get these downloaded. And if you wouldn't mind, want you to rate, want you to write comments. That's how these podcasts get rated and move up in the ranking system, is by your feedback. So please do that. But without talking anymore, I'm excited for this conversation and for you to hear this conversation. Really had fun talking with Samantha. Let's go to this conversation. Hey, welcome to Ministry Pivot. This is Reverend Russ. So excited that you are back with us for another Ministry Pivot. We know we are in a series that I'm calling The Calling, really calling your gifting. And I have some industry friends who are just super awesome and super dope in their own right. And so today, whenever you're watching this, whenever you're looking at this, don't forget to follow Ministry Pivot on all of the platforms. But whenever you're watching or listening to this, hopefully it will bless you. But we have today with us Samantha Silawani, better known as Baby Sam, the hype beast. She is a friend. She is a executive. She is a director. She is a radio personality, former. I believe she'll say more about that. But I can tell you this about Sam. Sam is a awesome leader, an awesome innovator, an awesome think leader. And so I'm excited to have her share about what her ministry, her pivot, her gifting is with us tonight, and or again or today, whenever you're watching. But she's going to share more about her about her passion, about her gift, and really just about her cred in what she does. I can't wait for you to hear some of the awesome stuff that God has allowed for Sam to do. So let's invite Sam in. Sam.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry, I had it on mute because and I'm just gonna do this disclaimer. I live in Harlem. So if there's background noise, y'all
I get it.
understand
I
Harlem is
get it.
very high.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah.
thank you
No,
so
no,
much
we
for
get it.
having me. Thank you so much for having me. Before we even get started, before you even segue into the next thing, I just have to go on record to tell you how immensely proud I am of you. You know, I've known you since your age ended in teen, and I've seen you grow from that into the man, the husband, the leader, I mean, just everything that you are. I am so immensely proud of you. My mama proud of you. You know, she said hi,
Thank you.
but yes.
Yes.
So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful to have this dialogue with you. But before we get started, I'm just also very proud of you.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. It means the world to me to have folk who have known me now. So let me just so I'm Reverend Russ now, but I used to throw parties and such. And Sam has known me from that time until now, and can be a witness that God has been kind. And so we'll leave it at that. But I thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. I did a light introduction, but I want people to be very clear. And I know this is not kind of your lane and you won't say everything, but I need you to say a lot of things to what you've been able to do, what you're currently doing in the music industry. I need people to understand some of your resume. I know you're not going to give everything, but I need people to be clear.
Okay, so some of my resume, what I am currently at this moment, I am currently the senior vice president of promotion, urban promotion for RCA Records. RCA Records is the home of Usher, Alicia, Chris Brown, SZA, ASAP Ferg, ASAP Rocky, and a slew of other artists.
Yeah.
But currently, I am the senior vice president of promotion there. And I recently was just honored in Billboard magazine as Billboard's Women in Music as a record executive. And to start off the year for 2020, I was honored by Variety magazine as New York's Women of Impact issue. So that came out 2020, but in the past, some of the accolades include Billboard's Top 40 Under 40, ASCAP's Women Behind the Music, and Variety's Hitmaker, and a couple of others. So, but those accolades are not mine. Those are definitely all God. And that's not posturing. You and I both know that I say it all the time. It's never about me. It's definitely about the sprinkle of blessing where it's just like boom. That's what it is. So
Amen. 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 I told y'all she has receipts, and I'm saying has receipts because downside in me, I want to say she got receipts, but it's cool. But the truth is, she has been just God has blessed Sam immensely. I know from at Morgan radio personality to 92Q, it just and to see Sam kind of move through in these different lanes, it's been really cool. Which brings us to my first question, my first thought to you is, when did you realize, or when did was it clear that music, radio, entertainment was something that God had gifted you to do?
I kind of always say this to a lot of people. Obviously, this platform is new, so a lot of people wouldn't have heard it here. But I always mention the fact that I've had tunnel vision, right? When I was growing up, I always knew that I wanted to be in music. My dad's a musician. So, what I used to see when I was growing up was when we would go to shows, you would see the musician on the stage and all the people are looking at the musician. But for some
Hmm.
reason, the musician was always looking at somebody that was in a corner and the musician wouldn't move until that person said yes it was time, or yes it was this, and there was something about it where I was just like, well, who's that person? Because the most powerful person that's on the stage isn't moving until that person says something, and that kind of opened the door of what behind the scenes could potentially look like. I have a passion for music. I love music. Music is in my DNA. Music is everything. I have a record player right behind me. I mean,
Yeah.
music is part of me. And I've always known that I wanted to be within the music business. I just never really knew what that meant. I just knew I wanted to be a part of it. And I had a passion for radio because radio is the conduit of music to people. And it allowed me to really tap into that passion of like, all I want to do is listen to music literally all day. That's my job. My job is to, go listen to music and then put it on the radio and have other people listen to it. You had me there. So I say that to say I've always kind of had that vision in my mind when I was growing up. Like that's what I could see myself doing, because that was the thing that attracted me the most. And when I got to Morgan, I was never one of those who was undecided when I came in. Nope, I knew. Study mass media communication, radio and television production. Those were my concentrations. That was it.
Wow. That's dope. That's dope. Now you slid past something that I want to bring back.
Okay.
Is you are, and then I'm going to ask you about radio and pivoting
Okay.
and how that looks. So we're going to get to that. But you are the senior vice president um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, at where are you at RCA, right?
RCA
Am I
Records.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, RCA Records. And I just want to make sure, because the names are changing and different. It's crazy. Like
Mm-hmm.
companies will shift, but like you are always at that other spot. Like you were at another spot before this, but you were still
Yeah.
up in
RCA.
leadership. Uh,
You're right. I was at Jive Records. So Jive
there
Records
we
when I
go.
yeah, Jive Records when I started it at a record company, and then Jive folded into Jive Records. J Records became the new and improved RCA Records.
Yeah. And then you shuffled up to the top already, just because you're dope and God is with you. But you slid past, right? So the senior vice president, African American female, from NYC. You went back, which is
Queens
dope.
get the
I'm from
money.
Brooklyn. Yeah, yeah,
Two
yeah,
borough,
yeah,
full
yeah.
thorough.
Uh, so, but tell me, just because I can't imagine that you seeing the musician on the stage and you
Mm-hmm.
seeing the manager or A&R rep in the corner giving them advice to what to do. I can't imagine it was a straight shot to where you are, because I just can't imagine it was a straight shot. What
Mm-hmm.
what were some of the things that continue to tell you to move forward, right? And again, I'm assuming, so help me if I'm wrong, but I'm just assuming that in an industry that can be different in some spaces, especially to African Americans, especially to women. I want you to talk a little bit about that, because there may be a sister who's watching and who may
Mm-hmm.
be kind of hitting roadblocks and hitting roadblocks. And you and I never really talked through a lot of the roadblocks. I just see you on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Good question. So how I've always been able to navigate the career path has been, in the beginning, I identified that I wanted a career and not jobs. So
Good.
I identified that I wanted a career in the music business. Then every subsequent job that I did take had to be about me having a career in the music business. So I initially started off interning at 92Q, but then also having my own radio show at WEAA 88.9, Morgan State. Shout out to MSU. Morgan
Yeah.
made Bear Life all day. But I started there, and part of obviously my major was me understanding how radio worked, because again, I just knew I wanted to be in the business. I didn't understand the unveiling of this entire industry. I just knew that there were people, but didn't understand what they did, how it related to certain things. When I started with radio, I began to understand the difference between a public station and a commercial station. What were the differences, and how do you navigate? What's the difference between a Hot 97 to an NPR? What's the difference between a radio chain? All of those things I began to learn, but again, I was able to still be on the music side. I was able to, you hear music, Then you put it on the radio, and then 500,000 people in the city are able to hear these new songs, whether it's Jill Scott or Erykah Badu or The Roots. And, you know, obviously this was back when I was in programming. And
Yeah.
what happened was, and this is how you know God definitely works no matter where you are. What happened was the industry of radio began to change, and my passion for the job began to disseminate, and I began to not like what I was doing at radio. Didn't mean that I didn't like but I was miserable. I wasn't happy because there was a seismic shift that was going on. This was maybe now in late 90s going into early 2000. So by the early 2000, 2001, 2002, I wasn't happy at that job. And I remember going into the job saying, yeah, I'm gonna quit. And it was on a Friday. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I was just like, God, I can't, like, I know I'm not supposed to be someplace where I'm going to be miserable. I quit on a Friday, and by Monday I had a job offer to go work at an independent promotion company. And the guy who brought me onto the promotion side was he's a triple OG. He was the head honcho of Arista, of Polygram, of Mercury. He was head of Black Music. His name is Tony Anderson. He brought me onto the record side and was like, you would be a great promotion person because you have a certain aptitude and you have a certain passion for music. You'd be great on this side. So he taught me the basics of what promotion is. And I understood it because I was on the opposite side at radio. And he was able to help me navigate what and how to be a promotion person, which led me to therefore get a job at Jive. And then from Jive, Jive is part of Sony. So I've been with Sony for 15 years, but I was at Jive for about 7.5 years. And then when Jive dissolved, it dissolved into RCA. And I've been at RCA for now going on 8 years.
Wow. That's great. So so I'm just want to be clear, like it wasn't straight shots,
No.
right? Like, cause I know, we all have them in our story. Like I had a government job that I quit, had no idea what was going to be next. And then but it wasn't until I quit that I had the next. So, and I think those are important nuggets to pull out, especially with folk who look like us, who are from where we're from, who pushing the way we're pushing, because it's clear that it's not cookie cutter, right? God designs it. Psalm 139, it's everything is your work so wonderful. I know them full well, right? That I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So I think that's cool. So let me ask you this question around specifically your ministry, your gift, and the pivot, right? So you're in promotion, you're in radio, you're in at a super high level that's totally different from anything that I know about. But what has COVID done to the end? Like what shifts or what pivots have had to be made for your job, for just the industry, however you want to kind of say that in light of where we are?
COVID has made everybody shift, not just me where I am, not just in music, not just in entertainment. I mean, I think we've got to really take a step back and really say the entire globe stopped. Like the world stopped. Industries went under because what we were used to just completely stopped. There was no more of the things that you took for granted, like going outside for fresh air or sitting in a restaurant eating with your friends or just communing in places. The entire world stopped. So what does that mean? That means that begins when we start to unpack those layers. It's how did we manage it on personal levels? And then how did we manage it on professional levels? On the professional level, obviously one day we all get an email like, hey, Sony's shutting down. Everybody's going to work from home. And we were naive. We thought we would be home for about 2 weeks. And we were like, all right, see everybody in 2 weeks. It's about to be great. We'll be home. I can just wake up in my pajamas. And, obviously us doing this now, it's what, 9 months later? and we're
Yeah.
still home. And you have now been cut off from human connectivity, from just your average day to day. And those things take a toll on your mental capacity, because the things that you would find a little bit of solace in, whether it was the frustration of your commute, whether it was the frustration of like the people in the office, there was something that was going on. Now all of that has halted. On the business end, we've always been very digital. Everything was digital. Very, very
Mhm.
few things required being in person outside of the in-person activities, a la concerts, shows, live this, or,
Yeah.
having meetings. Outside of that, everything, like we went home on a Thursday. Friday, everybody kind of had their kinks. Monday, we were rolling. We were popping out records. We were popping out albums. We were, we started to figure out, okay, people are home. What can we do? IG lives, this, that, digital, this. Artists, we began to send all our artists like equipment for them to create their own setups, because now you've got to shoot stuff at home, you've got to shoot stuff on your own. And where we would always have a crew or somebody who's creating this content, now the artists themselves had to be content creators, they had to be innovators in their own right, because now also too, you don't have the mobility of how to build and develop the brand. All you have is yourself, a computer, and hopefully some good Wi-Fi, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and I mean, it was a lot of kinks. We got on Zoom calls and everybody's Wi-Fi was slow, because the entire world had to now be on their Wi-Fi at home, as opposed to high speed Wi-Fi that's usually in an office building, so
Yeah.
we all had the biggest learning curve. But I think I will say kudos to the entertainment industry, at least in music. I think everybody pivoted in a way where they provided something for just the audience that they couldn't get, almost, an escape from their
Yeah. I
reality.
think, and I want you to say a little bit about that, because I think what you said though was that everybody had to adapt, everybody had to shift, and then you had to have the resources, or you had to think through the resources to shift.
Mhm.
And I think that's important for us to take note of, because if you don't think about the shift, and I'm saying, so we were in the same space, right? Even at
Mhm.
church, right? We thought, I thought that this can't last. I remember being on phone with one of the executive team members, and we were talking through how long, and they were pointing to the summer, and I was like, man, ain't no way this is going to be. We're going to be right back. We're going to be shouting. But they were
Let me tell
looking
you
at
something.
it and
I
like,
thought I
yo,
was going to Essence. I thought I was going to Jazz Fest. Lenny Kravitz was performing at Jazz Fest in April. I was like, yeah, I'll be in New Orleans by April. I thought I was doing all of my summer trips. I thought I was doing vacate. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
nothing. Did not happen, and that's the wild thing. But even in that, right, I'm hearing you say that God has made provision, made opportunity, and for us to use the level of creativity that we
Mm-hmm.
have to make the pivot, and use the teams, and use the people, and empower people to do stuff that they weren't
Mm-hmm.
doing before, right? So I heard all of that in what you're saying. And I think that that's important for you, whoever you're watching or listening, that whatever your business is, whatever your opportunity is, whatever your gift is, that you have to think creatively outside. Like, don't look at your current box, because that box ain't
Yeah.
going to work. It's a whole new box. It's a whole new bag, and he's
Mm-hmm.
provided it. I've been using this in these calling series. That my favorite text during this time is the text where Moses in Exodus 4. And God is talking to Moses. Moses says, man, I can't talk to these people. These people not going to want to listen to me. I stutter.
Uh,
God said, man, what's
mhm.
in your hand? And he was like, this staff. And he did something with what was in his hand that he had no idea could be done with what is in his hand. And I think
Mhm.
that's a key piece. Let me,
Come on, come on now. You better drop a word.
you so silly. Now I'm
I'm
gonna
about to use
throw.
that tomorrow like it's mine.
I love you, Sam. Now I'm gonna put that though for you.
Mhm.
So help me or help someone understand who what's some words for someone who has a gift, has a calling, um, and is maybe and it's not church, right? This whole series is not about church specific stuff, but something that maybe they're the artist, right? Maybe they saw the flyer because the card came out and they said, oh, I want to hear what the hype beast is going to say on Ministry Pivot. And maybe they're the artist trying to bust in the door, like what or they're the producer, what is I think a nugget or a push for them to understand that their gift is valuable, but it may look differently in this season.
So I always, people who do know me know a few things about me. Um, I'm in the music business on the secular side. Yes, I work with Kirk Franklin in some capacity, but the majority of the roster and my artists, it's secular music, right?
Yeah, yeah.
People know me for the fact that I don't drink and I don't smoke. I've never done drugs. That's never been me. I don't fall for like a peer pressure. I'm not a peer pressure kind of person, right? I
Hmm.
individually have my own thought process. And I never don't knock people who do, but that's just me. Now, I
Yeah,
could, in any shape, fashion, or form, if I wanted to, I could probably smoke some weed in my office and it'd be fine because that's just music
yeah,
business. But
yeah,
I choose not to because that's not my thing, right? And we all see it. We're all on social media, and we don't turn a blind eye to just what happens within entertainment. Back in the day, it was what, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, those kinds of things. But people who know me know, Sam, if we go to the club, everybody could have bottles. Sam is going to have some water. People who know me know Sam is a Christian 100%. I don't shy away from saying Christ, from saying thank you, Jesus, from saying amen. I don't say, oh, I
yeah,
was blessed by the universe. I don't confuse God and the universe because one created the other. So I don't
yeah.
confuse
That's good.
where, huh?
That's good. That's good because so we have a relationship. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that you're explaining it because I know others who are in that. You get earthy and all the other type stuff,
yeah.
but
And
I appreciate you saying it all.
so to me, there's a beauty in having conviction. And there's a beauty in having unadulterated conviction so strong of self and truly knowing. Like, I genuinely know that I am blessed beyond my own comprehension. I genuinely know that. I know that in my heart of hearts. I know that when like I in my core, I know that. I know that God allowed for me to succeed, even when I was making missteps, even when I was having problems, even when the road was tricky, even when there were obstacles, like all of that still allowed me to be where I am. But I know that I genuinely know, like, that's God's hand saying, I got you. Like, that's
Yeah,
just it. And there's
yeah,
something to be said about the ability to genuinely know who you are and be unapologetic about that. We use that phrase a lot, and I think it's overused so much, but it's a real phrase when you say in a very unapologetic way, I am who I am. And
yeah,
that's what I stick by. I stick by those morals. I stick by the fact that I try to show people, or young women, young girls, young Black girls, young pitch Black girls with thick African features, who are not ethnically ambiguous and who genuinely are pure, like dark skinned Black girls, to say you could still be the coolest in the room. You could still be the flyest, because I'm always the flyest. I'm always the coolest. I don't care who's in the room. Like, it really
yeah,
does not matter. It could be a supermodel, it could be a superstar, and then it'll be Super Sam. But
yeah,
not because of anything else, but because I know anywhere that I go, I belong because God allowed for me to be in that place. So to understand that, I know that there's something for me to represent in a way where young women, young females, and even young men, just to know like you can actually still have your own strong convictions about your faith, about who God is to you, and you can proclaim it on a national platform, even when, you know, hoteps and who what and all this and that, when people want to come combat you, and you can still say, yeah, no, my God is very real. I believe in God. I don't, you know, I understand the universe. I understand mathematics. I understand the language of, but there's a God, an omnipresent God that exists.
Yeah.
You know, so that to me is what governs a lot of my footsteps. And that's what I genuinely do try to pray about in regard to as I progress as a person, as an individual, not even career wise, but just as a person, that my intentions are always God driven. Like, I don't want to do it because it's like, nah. Because once we start
Yeah.
going on our own, that's where the ride gets
Yeah.
tricky.
Yeah. No, no, that's great. And I know I've said to you, I used to text you early on about this, then I stopped. But I was wanting to, I kept getting the understanding to text you and say, yo, I know the world that you're in is different, but I'm so glad you're there because people needed to have a Sam that in the midst of everything that there's a grounded African American Christian sister that is at this level who can ground. I mean, so anytime I meet anybody in the industry and I'm talking with them, I bring you up because I want to make sure that, hey, like, do you know her? Like, do you know her? Know her? Because if you know her, then I know that there's something good in some kind of way around you. Even when we had Sister Kayla is up there
Yep.
with y'all, and I
Ooh,
first
child.
person, I'm like,
Yep.
where are you? Go meet Sam. And she was like, really? I said, yes, Sam's a friend, but you need to be grounded. I need Sam to watch you and see you.
She
um,
is shining, and she's about to be a force to be reckoned with. She's
amen.
yeah, she's out of here. But I do just want
Amen.
to say the one thing that I think about a lot is, you know, I think about the analogy of just really light shines the brightest in the dark. And
Yes.
if you can just be a little spark of light, that begins a ripple effect. It begins somebody saying like, you know what, they could do it, because repetition is the mother of learning. So if people see it often enough, they will learn that behavior of, you know what, I can be a good person. I could actually do good deeds. I could actually do right by people, and I could actually move up in a cutthroat industry where people are
Yeah.
ready to cut you off at the knees, you
Yeah.
know, but you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
actually still have, again, integrity, your word, and progress.
Yeah.
And I
No,
always
that's good.
to just want to show, a, that it can be done, that I am going to do it, and that's the way that I'm going to do it. You know, other people have had different paths. That's not, those paths are not for me. My path is to walk right, is to walk with my head held high, is to be able to look in the mirror and be okay with the person that I see staring back at me.
That's dope. That's great. So yeah, that's dope. All of that. I'm hoping that y'all, and again, watching, listening, are taking these and really taking it to heart that where God has placed you, that's where you shine, right? And I think that that's dope. So one of the last questions I want us to talk about when we talk about this pivot is, while there's been a lot, right? And I
Mhm.
think there's been a lot going on with COVID, and we praying for everybody who's lost someone, everybody who's gotten sick, everybody who's recovered. We thank God for y'all. We don't talk enough about those who recovered, but I do want to ask the question about what's one or two of the things that has been a unexpected blessing of COVID.
Um, Being forced to really sit still
Yeah,
and to reconnect on a different level with family.
yeah,
So for a
yeah,
very long time, I was I was definitely very career oriented, chasing the goal. You know, that was
Yeah.
just my tunnel vision, right? And um, in a way, I would always put the family as the backdrop, as the default. And years
Hmm.
ago, I decided to make a cognizant change of how I interacted with my family, how I interacted with my friends, and how I really dedicated a certain amount of time. So I
Okay.
really wanted to make a commitment to my family. If we go on vacation, then it's vacation. I'm not checking, like, if I tap out, then I tap out. I
Yeah.
can't, you know, troubleshoot and put out fires if I'm camping in the woods, and it's like, oh, like that's unfair to the people who, I'm trying to spend time with, to reconnect with,
Yeah.
and to get to
Yeah.
know in my adult years. When you're
Yeah.
younger, obviously your parents are your parents, and family is family while you're growing up. But as now we're all individuals, you want to reconnect with your family in a way where they now know the new person who you are. And I say that to say this year, it has allowed me to seriously sit still, to
That's good.
to focus a lot more on meditating. So before, like, I used to meditate, but it was very sporadic. It would be like,
Okay.
okay, definitely, I would get into my zone. I would do my guided meditation, clear the mind, all of that. This year, I genuinely, I've done consecutive meditations. Today, I think I'm at I want to say my day might have been 225 today.
I've seen
Um,
that. I've seen that. I've seen you post it. I
yep.
also saw when you were in the woods, and I think I texted you like, "Yo, what's going on?" But I have
Yeah.
seen the meditations. Yeah, you're on some crazy number, which is great.
And it's consecutive meditation, right? And the meditation is really about figuring out how to compartmentalize emotions for us to be able to still deal with them, to process them, and how do we live with whatever the emotion is, whether it's you're on a high, whether you're on a low, whether you're just trying to quiet your mind. And it's crazy because before, I used to think that I had really good concentration up until I tried to meditate, and I was like, yeah, I suck at this. This is trash, you know. And
Yeah.
and it's similar to, like, how sometimes you try to pray, but you're only praying with, like, off of muscle memory, but not really praying
Yeah.
off of your heart, because it's like
Yeah.
you're not concentrating, and it's like, oh yeah, nah,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I know. Yeah. Like, I'm saying stuff, but I don't even know what I'm saying, because it's more like, okay, dear God, thank you, so da, 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 da. Boom. It forces you to really understand, like, hey, that thing that you got in your brain, your mind, like, your mind isn't ever going to go quiet. There's sleep studies that
Yeah.
show, like, even when you're sleeping, there's brain activity that's going on in your conscious mind. But what
Yeah.
meditation helps me do is to literally, like, put it all out there, then to begin to, like, pack it. Like,
Yeah.
it's like folding laundry. Like, you got this bag of a whole bunch of stuff, and all you got to do is just fold it, put it nice and neat, either here in a dresser, in that, and then when you're ready to come back to that thought, that emotion, that this. And it allowed me to also get a little deeper in my prayer, because now I was like, now I really could concentrate when I'm saying a prayer, as opposed to, like, okay, dear
Yeah.
God, good looking out, I appreciate the day, boom, amen, and then
Yeah.
that's it. So this year has really allowed me to sit still, reconnect, and just really be more aware. Like, mindfulness has probably been the biggest thing that I've gotten out of 2020.
That's great. That's what's up. That is awesome. And I know you have other hobbies and interests. I know you are a awesome. I don't even know if it's an art. I don't even know if is the correct term art. Like for what you do, because you go to like galleries. Like when it was open, when outside was open, you go to
Right.
galleries like intentionally. Like travel for the weekend to a gallery. Like I'm just trying to be clear. Like you probably exhausted all of New York's galleries and now
Mm-hmm.
you're like somewhere else. And so
Have
I think
art
that
will travel.
was, yeah, yeah. I think, but I think those things are great releases.
Mm-hmm.
And those things are great moments because you have to, as you said earlier, balance out all of who God created you to be. And so I think that's awesome. And mindfulness is a big key. There's a book called The Hour That Changes the World. It's a book on prayer, and it's not just prayer. It's a part
Mm.
of centering. It's a part of self awareness, and it kind of walks you through a wheel so that you
Mm.
can understand. And a part of that wheel is let's get it all out so that you're not just rambling off silliness.
Yep.
So I think that's phenomenal. Well, I don't have anything else. You've been
Wait,
awesome.
before we
Go
finish,
ahead.
I do want to touch on
Yes.
the art thing because I do think that that it's
Yes.
important that people like when we talk about careers or even just jobs or just like life, it's important that people really identify their passions, right? And I I love creators. There's something very, 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 very beautiful about people who create literally
Hmm.
something out of nothing. If you have primary colors, whatever those primary colors are not going to change. They're going to be the
Hmm.
exact same primary colors. But out of that, you could either do a Monet, a Picasso, to a Carrie James Marshall, to what, like you can create literally something. And whatever
Yeah.
that something is, there's something to be said about, if you have steel is steel. But all of a sudden, I can go into my mind's mind and create a sculpture. Or if you have music, the pentatonic scale is this exact same scale throughout time and history. Nothing changes about that. But look at the bevy of music. Look at the genres. Look at the world of music that we have, not just here domestically in the United States. You could go to India, you could go to Africa, you can go. We think about when we think about music, you think about Africans that were snatched from their native lands, brought over here, and the only way that they can communicate was through drums. And then even then,
Yeah.
the drums were taken away, but the rhythm was never taken away. That's where you start to get like stomping and like beating on bodies and like stepping. That's where
Yeah.
you got that rhythm because it's still something that was created out of nothing. So I say that to say, when I go to art museums, when I go to art galleries, when I go someplace, I get so invigorated by the fact that and it's not like I go in there and I like everything because sometimes I'll see something and I'm like, nah, that's trash, B. Y'all can't tell me, you know.
And
But
the price of it. It's like,
bruh,
nah, that's
you
crazy.
remember that Art Basel, the banana on the wall? Like, come really, if that's what we're doing. But then you look at a Jackson Pollock, and I love Jackson Pollock, and people are like, oh, that's just splatter painting. But there's when you stare at it, there's this organized chaos because it's a canvas laid on the floor and it's splattered, but it's methodical. There's a level to
Yeah.
it. He did it in a series where it's like, okay, now I actually do see a pattern. And that's almost like indicative of what? The universe, your mind, of everything, like this controlled chaos where it's like it's all over the place, but it's still contained on this canvas. There's something that's just so fire and so dope about those kinds of things that when I come back and I go to work, I'm just like, yo, I saw this great exhibit. Now I can really focus on on working with an usher who went and took songs that were nothing and created something, because also
Yeah.
I deal with creatives and
That's good.
I'm very jealous about creatives because I think that
Yeah.
creatives live in a different plane than we do. And, we have to honor those processes for them, especially if you are the person that's going to be responsible of speaking on their behalf. And to me, going to art shows or checking out art or seeing live music allows me to tap back into that the original thing that got me so interested because then I'm re-energized and I could go off and go smash it at work.
That is phenomenal because I never put those two together. Like I just knew that that was your thing, but to say that it then ignites you to be more creative or to think in another lane. I think that's awesome. And what you said about the palette of colors that we have not changing. My pastor, shout out Pastor Wiley, has this sermon that I love. One of the sermons that he preaches that I love. He does it. It's called 12 Notes, and he got it. The title comes from when the Quincy story came out, and
Mm-hmm.
Quincy said the way his person taught him was like, "Yo, you're gonna learn the same 12 notes that everybody else has learned." And do
Mm-hmm.
what everybody and but because you don't have to worry about being limited to what you have when you allow God's creativity to work through you, what you have can be a whole nother situation.
It's
So
a weapon. It's truly a weapon. Like it becomes
yeah,
you become something dangerous in a good way, because now it's like you're operating on a God-given level. You're operating on a like you've literally tapped into a portal that is like a spiritual awakening, you know? And
yeah,
to me, I think like there's no better experience in that when all things really truly are working for the goodness of God, like in every shape, fashion, or form. You're unstoppable. You really are.
yeah. Yeah, no, I think that is phenomenal, Sam. I appreciate you, love you. You know that beyond this setting, but I'm thankful to have you on. Hopefully, if you are watching or listening, you took some good notes. You're inspired to know that your ministry, your gift is your calling. I had this button that I didn't click all time we were on here, but your gift is your calling. And to make sure that you tap into the gift that God has given you. Look forward to you being a part of the next Ministry Pivot. If you need more information, you can just go to ministrypivot.com. You can follow us on IG. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, please rate. That's how this gets out there. But also make sure that you share it with somebody. But above all, make sure that you use it. There'll be show notes. And so some of the stuff that Sam has listed, I'm going to have in the show notes. Sam, if you would also send me some art stuff so that I can throw that in the show notes, just some dope pieces that people to go look at. And then
Jacob
I'm going to,
Lawrence. Jacob Lawrence, Black artist throughout the Harlem Renaissance. He did one of probably the most beautiful series I've ever seen. It was called The Great Migration, based solely off of the migration of Blacks leaving the South going up to the North. Great Black artist. Romare Bearden, one of the best, most beautiful collages. Yeah, I'll send you a good list. There's
okay,
there's more
awesome.
than
So,
there's
so
more than just Basquiat.
and we appreciate it. And I'm gonna need you to help me upgrade my art game, my art understanding first. But all of that will be in the show notes. So don't forget, if you're listening or watching, to go to ministrypivot.com and go to the episode, and under there you'll see show notes so that you can be informed and be inspired, but also have some detail to be able to walk through. Thanks again for joining us on Ministry Pivot. Look forward to seeing you in our next episode of Ministry Pivot. Bless y'all. Love y'all. Peace.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.